course, if an anime is successful, you
make a live action.
You make a live action version, yes. So the Japanese made a live action version of Death Note. They actually made more than one. But we're starting with the 2006. These are probably TV specials. They appear to be 3 movies, but they're not. They are part 1 and 2, and the third 2 years later. So 1 and 2 is what we're going to talk about. I'm going to assume that you either seen Death Note or you've seen my talk about the Death Note, because there's a lot. There is a lot. But if you know the story from having seen it, then you should be fine for this talk. The biggest problem this thing had was that it's only they're trying to do the story in 2-hour movies, so about 4 hours, and the story is 17 hours long. So they realized quickly they need to cut stuff really badly, but the story actually breaks down in about 5 segments, very clearly, and they decided we're going to do the 3, and then the 5th one, which is the end bit, we're going to stick it on to the 3rd one, because you have no choice. And I think that was a good choice. It works. They have to change some of the plots, but they did it in a way that is actually fitting to the story. I have no complaints with that. The original story is a fight to the death between L and Light, and that's still what it is. It just, because they had to end somewhere and quickly, it ends in a different way. Duh. One of the things I see with live actions adaptation, Japanese live actions adaptations of an anime, is that they're suddenly confronted with the actual physicality of actual physical beings, whereas Light in anime is a too pretty young 17-year-old with a complexion that a Japanese person just doesn't have, and L is the sort of a human goblin type with complexions and facial features that people just don't have. They have to conform to this. This also in combination with the fact that you also want a really good actors to especially play a Light, because it's a bloody difficult role. You're playing a psychopath. He's a psychopath. You did realize that, right? Yeah, we did realize that. You're watching a psychopath go off the deep end for 4 hours and trying to react to that. You need a really good actor, and get a 17-year-old. 2 things. 1, get a 17-year-old actor who can do that. Yeah, no. 2, watching a 17-year-old commit murders like that. Yeah, no. So, and they had a really good actor. I'm going to put him on screen, and I'm not going to try and pronounce his name because I also didn't write it down. So, he's perfect. He is really, he hits that psychopathy note so well. You believe it. And the actor who plays L is also perfect, because he gets that he needs to be a little bit overdone. I mean, yes, he's trying to put a realistic person in reality, but everybody's seen this anime. This anime is so famous. Everybody's seen it. So he makes sure that he does as much of L as he can without making himself look like a clown. He skirts that line very, very clearly, and he does it really well. And of course, the dad, which is the dad, needs to be a sturdy, guy that you can see, yeah, he is a police lieutenant, yeah, he is Japanese descendant from millennia of samurai and all that kind of thing, and you see all that in this guy. This is a sturdy guy. His son is also sturdy. They're pretty sturdy people. I like that. They have to go for the bare bones of the story. They pare it down as much as they can without losing the niceness. The only thing they did was extend on the Misa story, on the girl. They give her the backstory that she needed in the original anime, because they skip it. They just plonk her down with the Death Note and say 2 things, and then that's it. They give her that backstory. Thank you. I mean, it's all of 2 minutes work, and they actually realized, yes, it needs it. Let's do it. This is highly recommended. That's all I have to say. Yeah, sometimes this stuff is good. It's just good. Just go do it. You don't have to see the original to really enjoy this one. It was good. Okay. 2 years later, once this came out, and I think, like I said, I think it was like a TV special, like two weeks in a row or something like that. I've seen other things be specials like that, or maybe I don't think it ever came to the cinema. It's not that kind of movie. It's also just simply part 1 goes on, stops in the middle of at the cliffhanger, and then goes to part 2. So there's no, just watch them both together. Part 3, which is called L Changed the World, and I'm going to put a spoiler warning here because it spoils the end of the other 2, of course, because they have to go a different way. In the struggle between L and Light, in the original anime, L loses. Light loses in the end anyway, because duh. But in this one, they don't have time for that. They have the struggle, and L wins-ish. He wins because there were two Death Notes at some point, and there's a rule, because the rules of the Death Notes are long and many pages. One of the rules says that if your name has been written in one Death Note and then is written in another Death Note, the one in the first Death Note counts. The other one is invalid. So, what does this L do? He writes his name in one of the Death Notes. He writes it himself in one of the Death Notes. And so when Light writes down his name and figures it out and writes down his name, he can't. So it's already...
Why didn't he die from having his name in the Death Note?
He does die from it. Oh. He is on a time crunch, because the longest time you can let somebody live while their name is in a Death Note is 23 days. So he has 23 days. And that is what this movie is about.
So he's...
If you are... The premise of the L Changed the World is you have 23 days. You are... What are you going to do? You have 23 days left in the world. What are you going to do? And because he is a detective, first thing he does is solve every single unsolved case that he can. He just goes for page and page and file. Oh, go look at that. Oh, go look at that. Because who cares about reputation? You're not going to take my advice yet. Up to you. I'm going to die. I don't care. And another thing he does, because he's actually left at the end of the original of the film adventure, he's left with 2 Death Notes. So the question, what does L do if he holds a Death Note? And we find out the answer. He does what any sane people would do. He puts he has them burned in the first 5 minutes of the movie. Duh.
Yes, I would definitely. I would at least try to burn them.
Yeah, that's my question. My original question of the story is that if this would happen to me, morality tale would happen to me, and I'm given a Death Note, what would I do with it? I would try to destroy it. Question is, of course, if it is like a hell property, could you destroy it? Yeah. And that's that they don't they don't make that problem. He gets to destroy it, and he gets to have a nice adventure after. It's fanfic. This film is straight up fanfic. Enjoyable fanfic. Oh my god. And because the actor who plays L is so yummy. Not sexy yummy, but just fun to watch. This awkward little goblin guy trying to have a fun adventure. I mean, it's Action L, and Action L is not very action-like, but suddenly we have Action L running around. It's fanfic. It's great. So for that, highly recommend it as sort of a little dessert on the other two movies, because it is a very heavy story and. And of course it ends the only way it can, because
everybody dead.
Death Note is a horror story. The difference for L is that he can actually pass on a legacy, whereas Light has nothing. Light has no legacy, but L has a legacy, and that they realize that, and they do that here. He has one in the original because he passes on his detectiveness to M and to Melo and Nier, M and L, and he does so the same in here. He finds Nier and passes it on. Wonderful, like it. Go watch. Then in 2016, so 10 years after the film came out and 8 years after the fanfic film came out, from the same makers, which is interesting, they said, we're going to have another go. They did a series of little shorts of people, like 20 minutes each, 4 little shorts of people receiving a death note, and what are you going to do with it, or people around that. And then they made a movie to put that all together. And it's called Light Up the New World. And it answers, or the premise is, so if you don't do Light and you don't do L, because why not, but you do the Death Note story. What happens if you gave the Death Note to somebody else? What would they do with it? Of course, one of the things that they do that happens if you have like criminals that make dead people, and now the idea of Kira, of the phantom killer who just kills by letting people keel over with a heart attack for no reason, is now known. So they know what the nature of Kira is. They know there's a Death Note behind it. So they have a Death Note task force. And a Death Note task force as a detective. And he's actually also called L, because tradition. But he's a different L. He's absolutely not our L. He's not a descendant. He's just another one of the alphabets. And he is an adventure. And he does these sets of movies make more of a morality choices than the original anime does. The anime makes no choices at all. It doesn't indicate this is good or bad or anything. Here it does. In the original, in the movies, the first two movies ends badly for Light, with the full clear condemnation of Light. They realize this is the bad guy, yeah, and they present him as such. Not at the beginning, because you do find this out, and while he doesn't really find it out, we as the viewers are led to find this out, yes. And in the end, there's a confrontation with L and Dad and Light, of course, in which they have it out. What is right and what is not right, and this is not what Light is doing is not right. So they make, and I think it's because this is not an anime, so these are not little drawn figures, but actual people. They have to start. They realize they have to concretify not only the the physicality of the people, but also the choices they make. Suddenly, a pretty corpse is not an option anymore. They don't present a pretty corpse at the end, as in the anime. It ends up with a pretty corpse of light. Here, it doesn't. There is no, oh, isn't this a pretty corpse kind of moment.
So there's no glorifying of all this killing.
No, it is very much a movie of especially the 2006 movies of Light's journey downhill, but he's less aware of it. He's also like in the anime, he's not scared of Ryuk, which I think is an important point. But he is not. I think he's less aware of it, that he's really doing the wrong thing. But the everybody else around it, especially Dad, is very much aware that this is very bad. The 2016 movie of the different L and then different is more of a whodunit. This is more of a detective story with a horror tint than it is an actual thriller. Like the original is actually this fight between L and Light is what brings it, and that is less so in the 2016 version. Yeah, so still worth seeing. The 2016 it is okay. It's okay. I enjoyed it. So that's no. Oh no.
Not there yet.
Oh no. Because they couldn't leave it alone. Another company. I think must be another company, completely unrelated production, because these 2006 and 2008 and 2016 are related. In fact, to the 2016, they actually had a cameo of the 2006 people in it, so that was nice. So this is the same universe. This next one is not the same universe. They did a TV series, 2015, Japanese TV series of the anime, and this time they have 11 episodes, which is about 8 hours. And yes, they're doing the entire 5 acts of the story. That's about the only good thing I can say about it. There's one other good thing I can say about it, is that the actor who plays Light, and the one who plays L, and the one who plays Dad, they are wonderful. And for that, it's worth seeing. However, they mess up the story, not in a factual way, but in a mood way. They don't realize, in some way, I'm not sure what they don't, if they don't realize it is because, because they feel too uncomfortable with it, they don't realize that the bad guy is Light. They try to humanify him. They try to justify what he does. They try to make him sympathetic. They try to make him love Misa, and he just didn't. And he's also younger again. He's now back to being 17. They have this actor they have for it. He's really good, and that makes it, because the choices they made in the script is bad. Oh, they misunderstood this. The point is that it's uncomfortable to watch him run his life into the ground.
Yeah.
His life and everybody else's life. Anybody who touches, he runs it into the ground. And it's comfortable to watch. This is not a fun little romp or something.
And then somebody said, wouldn't it be nice if we make him the hero?
Yeah, make him the hero.
Or at least an anti-hero. No, not an anti-hero. Reluctant bad guy.
No, not even that, because he could have thrown away if he was anywhere close to any sort of sensible good guy. He would have just thrown away the Death Note or destroyed it. Yeah. He uses it. The fact that he uses it is.
There is another option that has not come up.
No, there's more than one, but yeah.
Right, okay, I'm sure there's many options that he could have done. Which is, he could have taken the Death Note, he could have put his own name in it, and he could have just self-destructed. And said, this is too dangerous, like somebody handing you a bomb that can blow up the city and you have no way of dismantling it. Well, you make sure you get the hell out of the city, and if that means you get blown up with it, tough cookies, but need of the many and all of that. He could have done that. He could have done that the moment he knew what this power was.
The reason he would have had to do a little bit more than that if he wanted to actually, because he would have to put something like Light finds a way to completely destroy the Death Note after he would. The thing is, only if it's physically possible. If he kills himself by using the Death Note, and actually that's sort of what happens in the 2016 movie, roughly, the Death Note is still there, and it's still going to fall.
Somebody can find it, yeah.
So this is actually the problem in the 2016 one, because 6 Death Notes are in circulation, and yeah. Oh my god. This 2015 series, the problem is that they didn't quite understand what the premise was. They didn't quite understand what their genre is, because it's basically a clear detective story with horror elements. That's what it is. And therefore needs to be fit together like this, like a zipper fits up. If you do that wrong, you get a mess. This is what we get. They don't understand that requires that the characters have to be a certain type, that Light needs to be that psychopath, or it doesn't work. L needs to be this focused on doing what he's doing, or it doesn't work. Dad needs to do the part that Dad does, and Misa needs to do what her part does. There is some wiggle room there, but not much. Or it doesn't work and it becomes a sort of a Death Note shaped object. So even though it's well acted, well produced, it has a couple of good moments, the acting being definitely one of the best. I don't recommend this one. Watch it if and when you've seen the original. And then you can sort of watch it as, this is a could have been kind of situation. The acting is really, really nice. I like the Misa, the actress. Like all the actors are really good. The Misa one is, I think, one of my favorites. The other one's also good. There's nothing wrong with the other one. It's just the role is terrible. Peanut Gallery has something.
Yes. So you said it's a police detective horror?
It's a police with horror elements.
Horror elements. So is that true, or is it actually a thriller? Because it's a horror when they have the 6 Death Notes after L is dead, and you don't know who's going to pick them up. That's a horror story. But if he manages to get rid of the Death Notes, he sacrifices himself with it, then it's a thriller, because he managed to get the evil away.
Yeah, but then that never happens. There's no version of that where he actually uses the Death Note to get rid of the Death Note. You can't. That's where the horror element comes in.
But he burned them, you said.
In the other one, in L Changed the World, L burns them, but he still dies because
he dies, but that's the thriller element.
That's the thriller.
He has to sacrifice himself.
Yeah, okay. The problem is that Ryuk and his world are not going to go away, and that's why it's in the same world that 10 years later 6 Death Notes are dropped. That's the same world that L got the Death Notes
So
written.
then it's horror again. It's like no matter what you do, you
lose.
will not win.
Yes, exactly. That's why it's a horror. That's why the horror elements comes, and that's why Light also uses, regardless of the fact if you think he is the hero or not, he loses. L loses. Dad loses. Misa loses. She not going to explain that, but she also loses. She survives, but she loses. Everybody loses. So,
well, I figure anybody who's touched the thing and used it has already lost.
Yeah.
Can never. Will also not go to heaven and hell.
Yes, and that's
or hell. It's just you disappear. That's it. End of life.
Exactly.
End of existence.
Exactly. So that's where that comes in. Japanese versions.
Live action, you mean?
Live action Japanese versions. And next up will be the American version in the next one. Because this was my opinion. And I'm sticking to it.